disabled alien girl gave up on fun until a human fixed more than her body. Zemi sat near the wall, her back pressed against the cold metal of the school building. The sun was bright, and the other children were laughing, running, and throwing a ball across the yard, but she didn't move. Her metal leg was stiff again, the wires old and weak. Sometimes, it sparked a little when she tried to walk too fast. So she stopped trying altogether. She used to play once, a long time ago. She used to laugh louder than anyone else, her feet light, her heart even lighter. But that was before the accident, before the fall, before the machines had to fix her. Bodhi, now her left leg was heavy and broken. The others didn't say anything to her, but their eyes did. Pity, fear, discomfort, and sometimes, just nothing, like she wasn't even there. Zemi got used to sitting alone. She learned to stay quiet and invisible. If she didn't speak, no one teased her. If she didn't try to play, no one could laugh when she failed. That was the rule she made for herself. But deep inside, her fingers still twitched when the ball bounced close. Her body still remembered the feeling of running free, and her heart, though silent, still ached for fun. Then, one morning, everything changed. A human arrived at the colony school. He wore dirty clothes, had strong hands, and a kind face. His name was Cole. He was introduced as a mechanic sent by Earth's peace program. No one really paid attention. Humans were rare, and most aliens didn't trust them. But Zemi watched him quietly, just like she watched everything. She saw the way he looked at broken things, like he wanted to fix them, not throw them away. Cole noticed her on the second day, noticed how she didn't move, how her leg was clearly outdated. He said nothing, but something in his eyes softened. He didn't come talk to her, not yet. Instead, he sat near the edge of the yard and opened his tool case. He began fixing an old drone that had been thrown away. Zemi kept glancing at him, curious but quiet. He didn't look at her, but he knew she was watching. On the third day, he came a little closer. Still no words, just tools and quiet repairs. The sound of metal clicking, wires buzzing. It was like music to Zemi. She tilted her head to see better. Cole caught the movement and smiled without looking up. Still, he said nothing. Finally, on the fourth day, he sat right beside her. He didn't ask if she wanted company. He just took out a half-built device and began working. After a few minutes, he spoke softly. "You don't talk much." Zemi looked away. He continued, "That's okay. I don't talk much either when I'm focused." There was a pause. Then he said something she didn't expect. "You don't need fixing, but maybe your leg does." Zemi turned her head slowly, her eyes wide. No one had said that before. Not like that. Not with respect. Not with care. She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, "It's not worth fixing." Cole looked up, surprised by her voice. He shook his head gently. "Everything broken can be fixed, especially things that matter." Zemi didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight, like she had swallowed a rock. She looked down at her metal leg, cold, scratched, barely working. Could it really be fixed? Could she really play again? That night, Cole stayed up late in his workshop. He studied her leg's design, drew up ideas, tested new parts. He didn't know her story yet, but he didn't need it. Her eyes had told him enough. Eyes that used to shine but now only watched from the shadows. The next morning, Cole walked into the school with a small black case. He didn't say a word, just sat beside her and opened it. Inside was a sleek silver part, lightweight, flexible, and glowing softly. Zemi stared at it, then at him. "I made this for you," he said, "only if you want it." She didn't move for a long time. Then finally, she nodded, very slowly. Cole smiled, but he didn't cheer or clap. He simply began to work, his hands steady and gentle. The other children stared, whispering. Some laughed, others just watched, like she was a strange machine. But Zemi didn't hear them anymore. She was focused on the feeling in her heart, a quiet, unfamiliar feeling, something like hope. And as Cole tightened the last bolt, Zemi looked up at the clear blue sky and thought, maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to stay in the shadows forever. The next day, Zemi came to school earlier than usual. Something she hadn't done in months, maybe years. Her fingers kept brushing the edge of the new part attached to her leg. The silver metal was smooth and warm from the sun. It felt strange, not like her old leg, not like her broken past. It felt like something new, something that maybe, just maybe, could belong to her future. She didn't know what to do with it yet, but she wanted to find out. Cole was already there, crouched down by the storage shed, fixing a cracked training bot that the kids had broken weeks ago and no one had bothered to repair. He looked up as she arrived, nodded once, and went back to work, not treating her like a miracle, not treating her like she was made of glass, just normal. It was the first time anyone had done that in a long time. She stood nearby, quiet, unsure, then took a small step forward. The leg moved with a soft whir, light and balanced. She blinked and took another step, slower this time, making sure she wasn't dreaming. She reached the edge of the field, stopped, and sat down, breathing hard even though she hadn't done much. Cole finished tightening the bot's leg, then walked over and dropped a small rubber ball beside her. "Try this," he said simply, then walked away again, giving her space, giving her the choice. She stared at the ball, confused. Her old self wanted to kick it. Her broken self wanted to ignore it, and the new part of her, the one Cole had touched not just in the leg, but somewhere deeper, wanted to understand who she was now. She reached down, picked it up, and tossed it lightly in the air. It bounced once on the metal floor, and rolled a little. She smiled without meaning to. A small boy noticed and pointed. "She moved," he said, loud enough for others to hear. A group of older girls turned to look, their eyes narrowing. One of them whispered something, and they all laughed. Zemi's hand froze. The smile dropped. Her fingers tightened around the ball, like it might disappear. The old fear returned, but before she could drop it, she heard a voice. "Hey," Cole called from across the yard, holding a small device in his hand. "Wanna see how fast that leg can go?" He tossed the device into the air, and it beeped once, a motion tracker. It would time her if she chose to run. She looked at it, then at the ball, then at the field. The others stared too, waiting for her to embarrass herself, waiting to laugh again. But something shifted in her chest, a quiet voice that whispered, "Not today." She stood up slowly, her new leg humming gently, and took a deep breath. She didn't run, not yet. Instead, she walked across the field with steady steps, awkward at first, but then smoother, more confident, the ball in her hand, her back straight, her chin raised. Cole said nothing more, just watched with a small, proud smile. The tracker beeped again, and she stopped in the middle of the field. Standing there, exposed, trembling but upright. The wind tugged at her long sleeves. Her hair flicked across her eyes, and she blinked at the wide space in front of her. For the first time since the accident, it didn't look like a trap or a prison. It looked like possibility. One of the boys kicked a second ball. Toward Hurt rolled slowly, almost kindly. She looked at it, then at him, and this time, without hesitation, she stepped forward, swung her new leg, and kicked it back. Not hard, not perfect, but straight and true. Gasps spread through the yard, even some quiet claps. Though most stayed silent, shocked. The boy caught the ball, gave a small nod, and turned back to the game, including her, without words, without fuss. Zemi sat down again, her heart racing, her face warm, not from shame but something close to pride. Cole walked over slowly, crouched beside her again, and offered her a small sandwich from his bag. She looked at him, puzzled. He smiled. "You moved today?" he said. "That's worth lunch." She took the sandwich slowly, nodded once, and whispered, "Thank you." Cole didn't answer, just stood up and walked away again, letting her sit in her small victory, letting her decide what came next. She stared at the ball beside her, the field, the sky, and then down at her leg, for the first time. It didn't feel like a reminder of what she'd lost, felt like the beginning of something new. And somewhere deep inside, she thought maybe tomorrow, she might try running. Maybe not fast, maybe not far, but she would try. Because today, she kicked the ball, and no one laughed, not even herself. The rain had started just after school ended, light and cold, falling in thin sheets that made the metal ground shimmer. Most of the students rushed indoors, or into the hover transports, their voices echoing with laughter as they escaped the drizzle. But Zemi didn't run. She couldn't, not yet. Instead, she stood near the edge of the yard, one hand stretched out, catching raindrops on her fingers like she used to when she was little, her new leg whirred gently, adjusting to the slick ground beneath her. She had walked across the entire field that morning without falling. A silent personal victory no one really saw except Cole. He'd given her a quiet thumbs up and left her alone to enjoy it. That mattered more than cheers ever could. But now something new was growing inside her, something unfamiliar and confusing. It wasn't just about walking anymore, or even kicking the ball. It was the way the air felt against her face. The way her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from hope. Cole appeared behind her without warning, holding a large metal sheet over their heads like a roof. "You'll rust," he joked softly. She smiled but didn't move. "Then I'll be the first statue with a new leg," she replied quietly. He looked at her, a little surprised, she joked back, and then crouched down beside her, opening his toolkit right there in the rain. "You're improving fast," he said. "But this leg's got more to offer. If you're ready." Zemi tilted her head, confused. "There's more." He nodded and pulled out a tiny chip, no bigger than a seed. "Smart reflex," he explained. "It learns your motion and supports your balance, makes you faster, steadier, but it also demands something in return." "What?" she asked. "Courage," Cole answered. "It doesn't work unless you move forward." She stared at the chip, then down at her leg, then into the field again, where the rain still fell gently over the empty space. Her thoughts spun. The old Zemi would have walked away. The broken one would have laughed bitterly, but the one standing here now. She just took a breath and said, "Put it in." Cole smiled, not wide, just a simple one that said, "I knew you'd say that," and then carefully opened a hidden port in her leg. The chip slid in with a soft click, and Zemi felt it immediately. Warm pulse, a tiny vibration that traveled from her knee to her heel. "Stand still," Cole warned. "Let it learn." She did, closing her eyes, focusing on her balance, on the ground beneath her feet, on the soft sound of the rain. Then suddenly, her leg shifted slightly on its own. It corrected her tilt before she even noticed she was leaning. Her eyes flew open. Breath caught in her throat. "It moved without me." Cole nodded. "It's listening now." Zemi took a step forward, smoother than before, then another, a bit faster. Then she stopped and looked back, shocked at how easy it felt. It wasn't just metal anymore, it was part of her. That evening, she stayed behind long after the other students had gone. Practicing behind the school near the storage yard, Cole watched from a distance, fixing an old broken playground spinner while sneaking glances at her progress. At one point, she stumbled while trying to turn fast. The leg caught her mid, automatically correcting her center of gravity. She didn't crash into the ground. She spun slightly, stayed on her feet, and then laughed, really laughed. It echoed across the yard and made Cole pause with his tools. Zemi didn't know it, but someone else was watching too. A teacher named Velis, who had once written her off as emotionally closed, stood by the window and frowned as he watched her spin. "She's smiling," he said quietly to himself, then walked away, unsure how to feel, because if she was healing, it meant someone had failed her long before Cole ever arrived. And he didn't like that truth, but Zemi wasn't thinking about that. She just stood in the rain, her arms out wide, spinning slowly in circles, her balance perfect, her heart light, and her face tilted up to the sky. She didn't feel broken anymore, not tonight. and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone either. Zemi stood at the edge of the training court, blinking against the bright morning light, her fingers curling around the edge of her tunic as her heart thumped harder than usual. Today wasn't like the other days. Today wasn't quiet, because today she had signed up for team tryouts. The board in front of the school glowed with names. Most were the usual students, the fast, the loud, the strong. But right there at the bottom was her name, small and unexpected. Some students pointed when they saw it, others just laughed under their breath. "Is that some kind of joke?" one girl muttered, her long tail twitching with annoyance. "She can barely walk." Zemi heard them, but she didn't turn away. Not this time. Her leg was steady beneath her, the smart chip still humming softly. She focused on that sound. Not the whispers, not the stares, just that quiet, loyal hum. Cole stood by the benches with his arms crossed, watching everything. He didn't interfere, not once. This was her moment, not his. He had given her tools, but she had to choose how to use them. The coach, a tall insectoid alien named Mick, buzzed impatiently. 5 laps, he barked. Then, agility drills. Let's see who belongs here. Zemi took her place at the starting line, her body tense. The other students lined up too. One boy leaned close and whispered, "Careful, you don't break your leg," before laughing and running. Off the moment the buzzer sounded. She didn't chase them, not right away. Her first step was calculated.com, the smart chip responding instantly to her weight shift. Then the next step was faster, smoother. By the third step, she was running not like before the accident, not like the others, but her own kind of run, low to the ground, powerful in silence. 1 lap passed, then 2. She was near the back, but she wasn't stopping. She didn't fall. She didn't cry. By the 4th lap, a few heads turned. She passed one of the slower students, then another, her leg adjusting, responding, learning with every movement. On the 5th lap, her breath came hard, her chest burned. Her leg trembled, but she didn't stop. When she crossed the line, she was second to last, but she had finished, fully, completely. Some of the students went quiet, unsure how to react. One boy clapped just once, then quickly stopped when no one else joined him. Coach Merck stared at her for a moment longer than the others, his large eyes blinking slowly. Then he nodded once and moved on to the next task. No praise, no insults, just quiet acknowledgement. And somehow, that meant everything. The agility course was worse. Sharp turns, sudden stops, jumps, not things a mechanical leg handled easily. But Cole had prepared her for that. He had told her, let the leg work with you, not for you. So she did. Her first turn was clumsy, the second smoother. By the third, she was bouncing off the pad and landing on both feet, shaky but upright. One of the teachers raised an eyebrow, muttering something to another staff member. Near the final cone, her foot slipped. The ground was wet from the early dew. She fell forward, but before she hit the ground, her leg adjusted mid-motion, locking in place. She rolled with it, turned the fall into a slide, and tapped the final marker before standing up again. The others were silent, even the ones who doubted her, even the ones who had laughed. And somewhere in that quiet, something stronger than approval took shape: respect. When the drills ended, the coach listed names for the second round. Most of them expected. Then he paused and said, "Zemi." She blinked, stunned. "You're not fast," he said plainly, "but you didn't quit, and that matters." Cole smiled from the benches, but didn't move. He knew better than to step in now. This was hers alone. As the students left the field, one girl passed by Zemi and didn't say a word, but didn't mock her either. That silence, for Zemi, was more powerful than any cheer. That night, Zemi lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling. The medal they gave all tryout finishers sat on her chest, light and cheap, but it felt heavy with meaning. She turned her head to look at her leg in the moonlight. The medal shimmered faintly. No longer ugly. No longer a burden. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a part of her story. And that story was no longer one of watching from the shadows. It was of standing in the light, one step at a time, even when no one believed she could. The hallway was too quiet the next morning, unusually quiet. Zemi noticed it the moment she entered the school, her steps echoing louder than they should. Heads turned as she walked past, but this time it wasn't the usual looks of mockery or surprise. It was something different, something sharp and cold, hiding behind polite silence. A notice flickered on the main board near the cafeteria. A message from the Colony Council, written in formal red text. Concerns have been raised regarding unauthorized modifications to student cybernetic enhancements. It didn't mention her name, but it didn't need to. Whispers traveled faster than footsteps, and by the time Zemi reached her desk, 3 students had already stopped talking as she passed. One teacher cleared their throat awkwardly when she tried to ask a question. Even the maintenance bot that usually beeped cheerfully when it scanned her legs stayed silent. Cole wasn't at his usual spot that morning. No toolbox, no drone parts, no smile. Her chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with her mechanical limb. She waited through 2 classes, her eyes flicking constantly toward the door, hoping he'd walk in with his usual calm face, maybe holding some strange new gadget in one hand. But he didn't come. By midday, she couldn't sit still anymore. She slipped out of the classroom quietly and made her way down the back corridors, the ones that led to the staff workshops and maintenance docks. Her leg clicked once as she walked, and she winced, as if the sound might betray her. She found him sitting on the floor, surrounded by tools, but not working. Cole was staring at a folded document in his hand, his jaw tight, his eyes not soft. Like usual but guarded. "They told me to stop," he said before she even spoke, his voice flat. "Said I broke protocol. Said I interfered with a student's body without permission from the council." Zemi stood frozen in the doorway. "But you helped me," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but that's not how they see it." He looked up at her finally, and the lines in his face made him seem older than before. "They want to uninstall the smart chip." Zemi's heart sank. She stepped back, as if the words had pushed her physically. "You're not serious." "I told them no," Cole continued. "They didn't like that either." She moved closer, her voice shaking now. "What if I say no? They might remove you from school," he said gently. "Say you're a liability." Zemi's fists clenched. Her leg hummed quietly, warm and alive beneath her. More a part of her than any other part had ever been. "It's not just metal," she said softly. "It's me now." Cole reached out, not to fix or adjust, but just to place a hand gently on her shoulder. "I know," he said, "but you need to decide, or you're ready to fight for it." She looked down, breathing hard. The fear was real, but so was the fire growing inside her chest. It was slow, but it burned steady. The kind of fire that didn't care what people thought. "I'm not giving it up," she said finally, "even if they make me eat outside, even if they take away my desk, even if they pretend I don't exist again." Cole's eyes softened a little. "Then I'll stand with you." And so, when the school council called a meeting that afternoon, and students gathered with curious eyes, Zemi walked in with her chin high and her steps steady. Cole walked behind her, silent and calm. They stood in front of the council chair, the head teacher, and the alien doctors who had never once spoken to her directly before. One of them tapped the screen, showing reports, codes, warnings. "This upgrade is unauthorized, untested, and potentially dangerous." The doctor said firmly, "It works," Zemi said, loud and clear. "It saved me. It's unstable." Another added, What if it fails mid-run? "Then I'll fall," she replied, "and I'll stand again." There was silence, thick and uncomfortable. One council member shifted in their seat, clearly unsure now. Cole stepped forward, his voice low but powerful. "You talk about risk, but you never cared when she sat in the corner for a year without hope. You only care now 'cause she's moving. Another pause, longer this time. The room full of tension that buzzed louder than any broken drone. Finally, the head leaned forward, tapping a claw against the table. If she keeps it. The school is not responsible for injury or malfunction. Zemi nodded. I don't need you to be. And just like that, the meeting ended. No applause, no celebration. Just a heavy silence, but she had won. She walked out slowly, Cole beside her, students watching from both sides. Some curious, some annoyed, some just quiet. But Zemi didn't care anymore, because for the first time in her life, she had stood in front of everyone and refused to step back. Her leg wasn't just metal, it was her spine now too. The sky turned orange over the schoolyard as the final bell rang. But Zemi didn't head home. She stood alone at the edge of the empty court, staring at the dusty training lines painted across the ground. Her new leg clicked softly as she adjusted her stance, the smart chip humming beneath her skin, learning with every breath she took. The tryouts were behind her. The council had backed off for now, but something else had changed. Something deeper. She wasn't just trying to walk anymore, or prove something. She was chasing something she hadn't dared dream about before. Joy, still here. Cole's voice drifted over from the bleachers, his tool case resting beside him. Zemi glanced at him and gave the tiniest smile. I want to run, she said simply. Cole stood and walked down slowly. You already can. No, she said, turning to face him. I mean really run, like I used to. Maybe faster. He studied her closely, then reached into his case and pulled out something new, a small, curved band, flexible, light. It gleamed like water. It's a shock suppressor, he explained. It'll help reduce impact, so your knee doesn't wear down during speed training. He knelt and attached it carefully, just above her joint, tightening it with a soft hiss. You sure about this? He asked without looking up. It won't be easy. Zemi didn't hesitate. I don't want easy. She took a few slow steps, testing the new support, then nodded. Start the timer. Cole activated the tracker and stepped back. Zemi faced the far end of the court, the wind tugging gently at her sleeves, her heart beating faster than ever. She closed her eyes, took a breath and ran. At first, it felt unnatural, her body unsure. Her leg pushing harder than it ever had. The ground came fast beneath her feet. Her arms pumped, and her mind screamed slow down, but she didn't. She kept going, faster. The air cutting across her face, the ground blurring below her. She could feel the chip adjusting, reacting, catching every imbalance, every twitch. It became an extension of her will, not just her body. Halfway down the court, she hit a bump and stumbled hard. Her shoulder twisted and the world tilted, but before she could hit the ground, her leg bent the right way, countering the fall, stabilizing her mid-stride. She gasped, but didn't stop. Cole watched, stunned, as she crossed the finish mark at full speed, and only then dropped to her knees, panting, her eyes wide with shock and fire. You did it, he said quietly, walking toward her. Zemi looked up. Her hair stuck to her face, her lips trembling, but she was smiling, wide and wild and alive. I forgot what it felt like, she whispered. The wind, the speed. I forgot it all. Cole knelt beside her, offering a cloth for her scraped elbow. Now, you'll never forget again. The next day, during lunch, something happened that no one expected. As the older students began their usual game in the yard, the ball bounced too far and rolled toward Zemi's table. She picked it up without thinking and tossed it back straight, clean, strong. One of the players, a tall girl named Ren, raised her eyebrows. You've got good aims, shrugged, unsure if that was a joke or not. You wanna play? Ren asked, half challenging, half curious. Everything paused. The entire yard seemed to hold its breath. Zemi stood slowly, her plate untouched behind her. She didn't say anything. She just walked onto the field. At first, they didn't pass her the ball, too unsure, too uncomfortable. But then one player missed a kick. and the ball rolled to her again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She tapped it with her foot, ran around a defender, and passed it clean to Ren. The game stopped for a second, players blinking, processing what they'd just seen. Then without a word, they continued. And now they passed to her again, and again Zemi didn't play perfectly. She tripped once, misjudged a bounce, but no one laughed, not once, after the final whistle. Ren walked up to her, breathless. "That leg of yours," she said, nodding. "It's scary good." Zemi looked down at it, at the scratches and soft glow, and smiled. "It's mine." That night, Zemi didn't stare at the ceiling wondering if she belonged. She knew she did, not because of the human who gave her the chip, or the council who tried to take it, but because she had run again, fallen again, and still stood back up stronger, faster, and freer than ever before. The storm hit just after sunset, hard and fast, slamming against the colony walls with wind sharp as knives. Power flickered across the campus, sending warning lights into the sky. Most students were rushed to their dorms, herded like cattle by buzzing announcements and worried staff. But Zemi wasn't in her room. She was in the supply hangar alone, leaning over a storage crate with a datapad in her hand and a broken drone on the floor. Her hands were covered in grease, the sleeve of her tunic tied back with a wire band. And her face was focused. She wasn't hiding, she was building. For weeks now, she'd come here after classes to learn, to fix things. Not because anyone asked her to, but because it made her feel alive. It was her way of giving back to the man who gave her more than a leg. He gave her a beginning. Cole had taught her how to use every tool in the kit, how to read diagnostic codes, how to listen to machines like they had a heartbeat. And now she could do it on her own. A sudden crash made her jump. The storm door outside slammed open, and a figure stumbled in, soaked from head to toe. It was Ren, the same girl who once laughed at her, now breathless and bleeding from a cut above her eye. "I saw light," Ren gasped. "The dorm lock jammed. Wind slammed the roof. I didn't." "Nowhere else to go?" Zemi didn't hesitate. She pulled Ren inside, shut the hangar door tight, and dragged over a thermal blanket from the corner. "Sit down," Zemi said, voice calm, hands already moving. She cleaned the wound with the same focus she used to fix drones. Steady, quiet, controlled. Ren winced, but didn't speak, watching her closely. "You're not afraid," Ren whispered after a moment. "You used to be. Quiet, always small. I used to be broken," Zemi said without emotion. "Now, I'm not." They sat in silence as thunder shook the roof. The lights flickered again, and then the door burst open, a second time, cold, dripping wet, eyes wild. "I saw the security feed. What are you doing out here?" he shouted, then stopped when he saw the two girls, the open toolkit, the patched-up wound. Zemi looked at him, tired but proud. "I was helping," he exhaled, some mix of frustration and awe, then finally chuckled. "Of course you were." He crossed the room, checked the wound, gave Zemi a long look, and nodded. "You did it right." Outside, the storm screamed louder, but inside the hangar, there was calm. The kind of calm that comes when someone who was once forgotten finds her, plays and then makes room for someone else. By morning, the storm had passed, and the sky was clean again. Students gathered outside. Damage assessments were made, and rumors spread fast. How the old dorm roof collapsed. How two girls had stayed safe inside a hangar, thanks to one of them knowing how to seal a blast door. The teachers didn't know what to make of it. The council remained silent, but something had shifted. Students began to approach Zemi not with pity or stares, but with questions, invitations, respect. By midday, a small line had formed outside the hangar, not for repairs, but to learn. Zemi taught them, one by one. She didn't raise her voice, didn't try to impress. She just showed them what Cole once showed her, how to hold a wrench, how to listen to the hum of machinery, how to fix what others gave up on. Later that week, the coach posted a new training schedule, and beside the usual names, There was something unexpected. Zemi, listed not as a backup, but as co-captain. When she saw it, her throat tightened. She didn't cry, she didn't cheer, she just looked at her leg, at the scratch marks from running, at the burn on her hand from helping Ren, at the grease still on her sleeve. She had rebuilt more than herself. She had built a place, and this time, no one could take it away, not even the storm.